Happy St. Patrick's Day month. I'm really excited that you guys are here with me today. Thank you for being part of the Pure Soul community. I always love sharing my time and my spirit with you guys, and I always appreciate our monthly conversations and our Ask Nickies. I really enjoy them, so I thank you for participating in those. And for those of you that don't join our Ask Nikki, I welcome you and I encourage you to join. We have some really great conversations. So I hope to see you guys there as well. Before we get started today on our spiritual focus topic, I did want to share a few Alma Pura updates with you. This month's Ask Nikki Zoom is going to be held on Wednesday, March 20th at 6 p.m. So I do hope to see you guys there. The members discount for this month is 20% off any individual session. The coupon code is located on the main Pure Soul page, and the next discount is the 50% off the Empathy and Me workshop. So I hope you guys take advantage of that. Again, the coupon code is on the main Pure Soul Premier page. So I'd like to dive into the spiritual focus topic for this month. And I've titled that Embracing Humility, a reflection of the third Beatitude, Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. So this single line, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth, from the Sermon on the Mount really captures everything that is humility. In today's world, like the virtue of humility is undervalued, it's misunderstood. Sometimes it's thought to be weakness, and it's not weakness. And since I like to do things in threes, I thought that we could unpack this beatitude from three different perspectives: a spiritual perspective, an interpersonal perspective, and a personal perspective. So when I think of this beatitude from a spiritual perspective, the idea of meekness or humility is sometimes confused, like I was saying a little bit ago, with weakness. And it's actually the exact opposite of weakness. Humility, it's more difficult to be humble than it is to be proud. And humility really embodies a deep sense of gentleness and patience toward ourselves and toward other people. Humility is about it's like recognizing our limitations or acknowledging our own faults and knowing that we don't have control over some things, and being able to, in those moments of not having control, being able to surrender our ego to something bigger or something bigger than ourselves, to Creator or to God, to what you consider to be your higher power. And when we do this, when we embrace this beatitude, we humble ourselves to the divine. And when we are able to surrender our ego to that bigger part of God in the universe or Creator, we open up our hearts. And when we open up our hearts, we receive grace. And when we receive grace, we allow for spiritual development or spiritual growth. And we start to unpack all those things that are stuck in our heart from our childhood and from our past experiences. So, for example, think of a time when you were humbled before the divine. What was that like for you? And how did it make you feel? Like, for example, one of my most impacting moments of being humbled before the divine was when Brittany was a little baby. And she was born with a hole in her heart. And she was okay for like about 4 months, like a normal baby. But at 4 months old, I noticed when I went to pick her up out of the crib that her lips were blue. And at first I thought she was cold. I was 19 at the time. So, but then my brain got the better of me, and I was like, she's not cold. Her lips are literally blue, even though I bundled her up and I rubbed her. And so I rushed her to the Naval Care Hospital thinking that it would be a quick fix and I was probably overreacting and they're going to think I'm a crazy young mom, But I found out that I wasn't overreacting. And they gave her some oxygen and they took her for x-rays, and they told me that she had a hole in her heart. And since they couldn't send her to a cardiologist until that following Monday, this was a Friday, I had to take her home and monitor her breathing over the weekend to make sure that she was breathing at all times. And it was the worst weekend of my life. Like, I never did I pray so hard. I was making deals, I was making promises, I was begging God to save her life, and I knew that I had no power to change what was happening. And she was going to have open heart surgery, is what I found out after that weekend when we did go to the cardiologist. And it was just, I couldn't even process anything, and I there was nothing I could do to change the situation. And I knew that he could change the situation for her. So it's like that's the moment that I recognized my limitations. That's the moment that I acknowledged, like, I can't fix this, you know. Sorry about that. That's the moment that I acknowledged my own faults and I surrendered my entire ego to something greater, to something bigger, and that was God. And so, from a spiritual perspective, sometimes things happen in our life that humble us. And where do we turn when we are humbled? And in that humility, are we able to surrender our ego and let God take over and let Him take care of it? I swear to God, I swear to him that his plan is always better and he always figures it out. So when you think you can't, just turn it over to him because he can. Um, so the second perspective that I wanted to talk about was the interpersonal perspective. And think about that. Think about being humble in your relationships and in your interactions with others. We naturally experience more empathy or compassion or understanding toward another person when we have humility in that relationship, when we're not proud, when we're willing to listen. And if we do have that humility in our friendships or our interpersonal relationships, it really does enable us to listen and to listen attentively, to respond with kindness and to act with gracefulness. Meekness doesn't mean that you are a pushover. It does, you know, blessed are the meek. It doesn't mean that you're weak or that you're a pushover. It really means like it empowers us to resolve conflicts a lot faster than if we were being prideful. It allows us to create more peaceful conversations and relationships. It also encourages a mutual respect from us to them and them to us. So I remember this one time where I went for an eye appointment at Vision Works, and the cashier um, was very obviously in a bad mood. And I knew that I was like the last client of the day because it was later in the afternoon. And I think she would have probably given anything for me not to have arrived for my appointment. Like, probably she was hoping that the last appointment would be late. She was so rude and she spoke to me like I was a huge bother to her. And initially, like, I felt that rage, you know, like I got pissed off, I got angry, and at her, at the way that she was acting and her whole attitude, it like triggered me. And I got that like twist in my stomach and I started getting angry. And then I remembered this one night when I was working as a waitress at my second job. And we were like 5 minutes from closing, and a group of 8 people walked into the restaurant. And I was so tired. I got so upset that I had to stay and wait on this huge party. And the thought alone humbled the hell out of me because at that moment I understood what she was feeling. And I felt bad that I had judged her, especially because I had felt that way too in the past. And this is where my whole entire tone changed with her. And I spoke to her kindly, actually, and I didn't give her that triggered reaction that I normally probably would have given. And I noticed that the shirt that she was wearing was really pretty. So I told her that the shirt was really nice and it really made her eyes pop. And where did she get it? And I think she was touched at my comment. But what I noticed is that her whole demeanor changed. Like, she relaxed and she was kind. And then she was like, "Hey, baby, come on over here, sit down right here. It'll be fine. The doctor will be with you in a minute." And I realized at that moment, that's the moment I realized that being humble doesn't mean I'm a pushover. It just helps me to resolve a conflict peacefully and to create a better relationship and a mutual respect, the cashier and me to the cashier. So think about that the next time you feeling triggered when you're connecting with someone or speaking with somebody and just kind of choose the opposite way. It really does make a difference. So, from a personal perspective and on a personal level, meekness or humility leads us to inner peace. It leads us to contentment. And when we let go of our need to control things or to obtain validation or recognition from the outside world, we literally free ourselves from the hugest burden. And that burden is self comparison and how we compare ourselves to the outside world and how we measure ourselves because of what we see on the outside world, and we make it a competition when instead of fostering the best within ourselves, we're just trying to keep up with the Joneses or be as pretty as that one or as thin as that one or as rich as that one. And that just distracts us and takes us away from our journey. So instead, we want to try to be focused on our authentic self, on who we are with ourselves. And we really want to gauge how we measure ourselves. And, we embrace our strengths and we love that about ourselves, but we also have to really embrace our weaknesses and accept the things that we can and the things that we cannot do. And I think there's even a prayer for that. But through self reflection, we really begin to feel a deep sense of gratitude for the blessings in our lives. And humility really allows us to see the beauty in the simplest things. So when I was 16, I got a job at this place called Little City in Palatine. And Little City is a home for handicapped adults and children with various degrees of disabilities, like autism, retardation, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and a lot of other ones too. But I worked on this floor named Sycamore, and I had about 15 special adults that was working with. And I worked the shift from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. 4 days a week. And I remember when I first started there, I kind of felt bad for some of the residents, and I viewed them to be at a disadvantage in life. And I thought, I was grateful that I didn't have any of those conditions and that I wasn't afflicted, I guess, in the way that they were. And so I felt capable. And I didn't think that they were capable. I really loved this job. I loved the job. And this next part of the story tells you why I loved the job. I felt initially like I was the one taking care of them. And I was the house mom. I made the dinner. I passed out the meds. I made sure the guys shaved both sides of their face and that the girls remembered to brush their hair before the bus picked them up to go to their work or to their schools. And a lot of other things too. So my perception of them was that I was taking care of them. But one day, I had the worst migraine headache that I ever had in my life. And I was crying most of the day because the pain was so bad. And so I took all kinds of Tylenol and everything that I could think of trying to get rid of the headache before work, but the headache stayed. So I don't know how they knew, but when I got to work, I walked in and said hello to all the residents on the floor, and they were happy to see me because they're just always happy, which started to really brighten all of my days because they're literally always happy. So, but again, I was there to take care of them. But this one day, one of the residents named Billy, after I walked in, like I was only there for like about 5 minutes, and he said, "What's wrong, Miss Hart?" And he said, "Your face looks like it hurts. Are you sad?" And I told Billy that I had a headache since early this morning then, and that it was still hurting. And at that, Billy went into the living room area and told all of the other residents, "Miss Hart has a headache and she doesn't feel good, so let's make her feel better." And then they all went into the kitchen area, but left me in the living room area. And I heard them whispering and giggling. And then when they came back into the living room, one of them was carrying a blanket, one of them was carrying a pillow, another one came over and shut off the TV, another one dimmed the lights, and everyone sat down around me. And one of the girls sat by me on the couch and said, "Give me your hand so I can hold it. And then you know that you're not alone." Right. Oh my God. Like I lost it. And that day is the day that I realized that it was me who was at the disadvantage the whole time, and it wasn't them. It was in that moment, I was so humbled by their kindness and their love for me. And for the first time, I realized that it wasn't me helping them, it was them helping me. And I realized through that self reflection that I had a lot to learn. And at that moment, I understood that I wasn't there for them. I was there for me. And I was so humbled and I felt so loved. And I was so grateful for all of my residents that I was on the floor with. And that to me, I don't know, that day just changed my life. So, in conclusion, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth, teaches us that if we embrace this beatitude and we try to live by it and try to apply it in our lives, we'll have better relationships because we'll be practicing humility. We'll create deeper connections with other people, and we'll share in fulfilling relationships with our friends and with our family. We'll have inner peace, because embracing humility frees us up from uh, like pursuing validation in the outside world and getting approval from the people around us instead of trying to find the acceptance and the peace that we have with ourselves. And we will have spiritual growth in our lives because humility and meekness open the door to spiritual growth and to enlightenment, and it guides us more like toward a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world or who we are in the world. So I really like this beatitude, and I really feel like it's showed up in my life many times. So I encourage you to think about this beatitude and think about when has it shown up in your life and what perspectives and what ways. And I hope that you guys all have the ability to embody humility the way that Jesus describes it in the third beatitude, and that your lives are enriched with love. So, yeah, that's all. Okay. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it, and stay